Hello and welcome to Who's the Bossk? It's a Star Wars podcast from laughingplace.com. My name is Mike Celestino. I am your host. I'm the lead Southern California reporter and editorial director for Star Wars content at Laughing Place. This is episode number 209 of Who's the Bossk, and we will be discussing the third episode of Lucasfilm's live-action Disney Plus series entitled Star Wars Skeleton Crew. For that discussion, I have invited for the very first time on the show a friend who I've made recently within the Star Wars community. His name is Patrick Radecker. Patrick, am I saying your last name right? I meant to ask you before we started recording.
You did, Patrick Radecker.
Radecker, great, excellent. How are you? Thank you for coming on the show. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
I'm doing well. I'm already starting to make plans for HalseyCon 2025.
Yeah,
I'm already there.
Awesome. Hopefully, I will get to attend this year's or this coming year's HalseyCon. I heard a lot about it. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it out for the inaugural event. But yeah, on all your social media feeds, in your profile, it always says a Galactic Star Cruiser super fan. So how many times did you get to do the Galactic Star Cruiser? And tell me a little bit about your experience of why you consider yourself a super fan.
So I was lucky enough to go 4 times. My father-in-law, he loved it incredibly, and so he took me along a grand total of 4 times. The first time I was a deer in the headlights, and then I sort of like understood what I was doing by the second day, and after that is when I found the Heroes of the Halcyon podcast, who is how I met Martin and Christine and Drew, and how I actually found Who's the Bossk, because you've been on their show. But on the Star Cruiser, I kind of did a little bit of everything. And why do I think that I'm a Star Cruiser super fan? I know a little bit too much about it.
Okay.
I know so much about the timing, about entrances in and out. I try to keep up with, I don't know, I guess it would sort of be a parasocial relationship with some of the actors and talent that were on board. And then most of my friends are people that went on Star Cruiser, because it's easy to get along with those people, because you have a common language, you have a common love. No matter what you're really talking about, if you can relate it back to something that you did on Star Cruiser, you have this innate ability to get along with someone.
Yeah, it really seems like there's been a nice community that has formed from the folks who are really into the Galactic Star Cruiser. And yeah, it sounded like HalseyCon went great, and I'm hoping to get out for that second one. By the way, I do want to remind you that we are recording this episode live on the Laughing Place YouTube channel. If you would like to watch along and comment or ask any questions that you might have, we'll be happy to address them, such as Caleb Joshua Hill, who it seems like he knows you.
Yeah, Caleb, it works with Stan and I on our lives. Yeah, Caleb comes on a few times. Yeah. So hi, Caleb.
I might be having a signal issue.
Oh, no.
Am I cutting out a little bit for you?
I still have you.
Okay, good. All right, let's continue on then. Patrick, this is your first time at the Bossk. That means we have to do something called the 5 Star Wars questions. This is where we get kind of a baseline of our guests' Star Wars fandom. Patrick, are you ready for this?
I am so excited. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Let's start out with number 1 of the 5 Star Wars questions. Number 1, what is your earliest Star Wars memory?
I remember being 4 or 5 and watching a VHS tape cable recording of A New Hope off of one of the cable channels that was watching it. I distinctly remember the Tatooine sandcrawler scene, which then leads back to Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru and so on. But that's my earliest Star Wars memory.
Very cool. And did you consider yourself a fan from that point on, pretty much?
I would say yes and no. I've always loved it. I had the special editions on VHS when they came out in '97. That was the first time I owned Star Wars.
Right.
And then I guess kind of in high school, I kind of waned a little bit because that's when the prequels were coming out, and I listened to the hype a little bit and didn't
Yeah.
just enjoy it. And now as an adult, I love them. And actually, with The Force Awakens, that sort of like jumped me back in full bore. And then Star Cruiser, like, oh my gosh, just
Yeah. Okay.
really into it. Yeah.
Well, you had a similar experience to me then, because I started drifting away during the prequel era and came back in full force, no pun intended, when the Disney era started up about a decade ago. So, yeah, I'm right there with you on that.
And
Let's
I,
get
I really
into
love the Disney books, honestly. That's
yeah.
actually been part of my favorite part of Star Wars since getting back into it. So anyway.
Cool. Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, I keep up with the novels as well, and I've been enjoying a lot of the recent stuff that's been coming out. Let's get into number two here. What would you consider your current favorite Star Wars movie or TV series, and why?
This one was really hard. The Last Jedi. I was
Nice.
very close to saying Andor because it's so topical. Feel like I really wish I could be Luthen and organize a rebellion. Um, but there are no Jedi. There's no lightsaber. There's no
Mm,
Force. And as much as I love Andor, I like that being a part of Star Wars,
right.
like part of the DNA. So that's why I'm picking The Last Jedi. So now, why did I
Okay.
pick The Last Jedi? Um, I remember saying expletives out loud in the theater when I saw it on opening night when Kylo killed Snoke. I was just absolutely just blown away with the movie. There were some things I dislike about it, just like any movie, but I love what it was trying to say uh,
Yeah.
about who matters, who is allowed to matter. It says a lot about entrenched dogma of the Jedi. And I walked out of the theater being thrilled that Rey was from nowhere and she was no one, and she was chosen by the Force to battle great evil.
Yeah.
Um, it's a romantic notion, and I kind of like it. Even though Rise of Skywalker kind of reverses some of that,
Yes.
I still love what it says about particularly what it says about the Jedi. And we'll
Okay.
kind of get to that with the next question.
Yeah. What a great segue to get to number three. Who is your favorite Star Wars character, and why?
Iskat Akaris. She is the 13th sister. I just
Okay.
reread Inquisitor Rise of the Red Blade, and my goodness, that book is so magnificent. Iskat's story is really wonderful. I love it because she represents so much, her and her story represent so much about what is wrong with the Jedi.
Okay.
Going back to another reason why I kind of love The Last Jedi and how it explains why the order itself needs to go away. Not like the principles, but like the name Jedi needs to go away. And the Acolyte, for that matter, is another reason why I kind of like the Acolyte. It talked and showed us what was wrong with the order.
Mhm.
Iskat is held back, lied to, not told full information, and just generally ostracized for being who she is. Um, and even after the Jedi Purge and becoming an Inquisitor, she didn't fully become a monster in a way that most of the others were. I just thoroughly love her story, and that novel by Delilah S. Dawson is so good.
Yeah, I really like that novel a lot as well. We've been getting a lot of Inquisitor content lately between that novel, Rise of the Red. We also had the Inquisitors comic book, and we had
Hmm.
Tales, was it Tales of the Empire, that had a whole storyline about the Inquisitors. Yeah.
Yep.
Um, so if you're a fan of the Inquisitors, there's plenty coming out that you can enjoy recently from the Star
Hmm.
Wars. Number four of the five Star Wars question: which faction? Let's say you lived in the fictional Star Wars universe. Which faction would you belong to? Where do you think you would fit in among the characters in the Star Wars universe? And the examples that I always list off here are Jedi Order, the Sith, the Rebel Alliance, the Empire, the Bounty Hunters, the Smugglers, the scum and villainy hanging out in the cantina, or anything else that you can come up with? What do you think, Patrick? Where would you
So
fit in Star Wars?
if I'm thinking practically, I'd probably be a denizen. But I'm going to dream big, and I'm going to say that I would most certainly be in the Rebel Alliance. You can dream even bigger and think that you might be a Jedi. But you know what? Actually, I'll go one even further and say that I would be a Saja.
Oh, nice.
One who may not necessarily wield the Force, but who
Yeah.
understands it and does their best to help others. That would be my big dream of like, oh, that would be what I would want to be.
So I don't know. I have to admit, I don't know a ton about the Saja outside of Galactic Star Cruiser. But if somebody wanted to find out about that particular faction in the fictional Star Wars galaxy, where would they go to now that they can't board the Halcyon? Is there
I think
anywhere?
Nick Tierce might be the
Yeah.
best source.
Yeah.
There's a couple of Facebook groups.
Okay.
Their costume is official, right? Like you can
Yeah.
officially be a Saja. If for people who don't want to go and do the research, they're kind of related to the Guardians of the Wills somehow.
Okay.
That's what Nick has been able to kind of tease out, but we don't truly know too much.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I'm fascinated by people who are involved in other religions in the Star Wars galaxy that aren't necessarily the Jedi Order, but maybe like tangentially related to the Jedi. That always interests me. We've
Mhm.
gotten that quite a bit in the publishing side recently as well. Okay, number 5 of the 5 Star Wars questions: impression or possession. This is where I ask my guests to either do a Star Wars impression, or you can opt out and tell me about a favorite Star Wars possession you may own. What do you think, Patrick? Which one would you like to do?
I'm gonna make the game time decision and not do the impression.
Okay.
Last second. I was gonna do a Yoda impression, but like,
All right.
you can't do. I'm not Frank Oz.
All right.
So I'm actually gonna go to some stuff that's Star Cruiser.
Yeah,
Nick
let's see.
Tierce put a book together that he
All
gave
right.
out. Excuse me, he didn't give out. He I don't know the right words. He distributed to some friends.
Okay.
And then he also sells this on his Etsy shop. And this is the Saja's symbol in a pin
Nice.
form. And on my last trip, I did earn this. So it means a lot. And then on the May the 4th cruise, I got a Gaia purple shrimp from one of the crew members who was on board as a guest that particular time. I'll show you these, but I won't really talk about them.
Oh, okay.
I was invited to bring them home. So
Well, that's a special treat for those watching on YouTube.
yes,
You won't hear in the audio
you
version
got to
what
come to YouTube to see.
Patrick just showed off. That's going to bring us to the end of the 5 Star Wars questions for this week,
Yeah.
and we'll get into thank you very much, Patrick, for participating, and let's get into some Star Wars headlines for this episode. The big news coming out this past week was actually casting news for the upcoming theatrical film, The Mandalorian and Grogu. We learned that the bear actor Jeremy Allen White is going to be in the movie. I first saw the headline and it said Jeremy Allen White will be in the Mandalorian and Grogu, and I thought, great, he's a really acclaimed, well-regarded actor these days. And then I clicked on the headline and I got the full what they were saying. I think it came out through Variety or the Hollywood Reporter, one of those. And he apparently, Jeremy Allen White, will be playing an existing character in the Star Wars galaxy, one I never would have predicted in a million years.
This is Stinky, right?
Yeah, it's Stinky, aka Rota the Hutt. Excuse me, I wrote it wrong here. I had a little typo. Rota, Rotta, the Hutt, the son of Jabba the Hutt, as seen in the 2008 Clone Wars theatrical film. I'm guessing he's going to be a little bit. He is obviously older because The Mandalorian takes place in the years following Return of the Jedi. So we haven't seen that character originally in live action. I mean, sorry, we originally saw him in animation. We've never seen him in live action, and it will be interesting to hear. Well, go ahead.
Oh, I didn't even know what happened to him after that series of episodes. I've never seen him anywhere else, never heard of anything.
Right.
So
I mean, what intrigues me about this, and I think I brought this up on the show before, is in the books. Have you read the Aftermath trilogy, Patrick?
yes, yes, I
Okay.
have.
So there's the town of Mos Pelgo where Cobb Vanth lives,
Mhm.
the Timothy Oliphant character. And in that town, in the books, they have a baby hut. They don't go into the like who he's related to or who like where it came from, or I don't remember like why they have a hut, but it's like they're like keeping him secret and private, and they don't want it to get out that they have this hut. And I wonder if that's connected in some way to Rota popping up again in The Mandalorian and Grogu. We won't find out until a year and a half from now when that movie comes out. Are you excited for this movie, Patrick?
I'm excited for the movie. I'm
Yeah,
interested in this casting choice because
yeah,
that's a really huge actor to end up
right,
being fully CG. Like I don't know how
right.
you make a hut practical.
Well, the first hut we ever saw was practical. Well,
Well,
Jabba was
but
practical.
moving
Yeah,
around, you're like the
right.
actor is not there.
Yes. Um, are you a fan of The Bear? Have you watched that show?
I actually haven't watched The
I
Bear. I don't have the ability to watch FX at the moment.
Okay. I haven't seen it either. It's one of those shows that keeps getting recommended to me. Like my mom loves it. So someday I'll check out The Bear, especially now that we have this Star. Actually, there's two Star Wars connections because one of the other actors is in Andor, the guy who's playing Ben Grimm, the Thing in the Fantastic Four movie,
Mhm.
uh,
Yeah.
is in The Bear as well. Another casting piece of casting news that came out of The Mandalorian and Grogu, the actor Johnny Coyne, Coyne, will be returning as an Imperial warlord. He first showed up at the end of The Mandalorian season 3, and that character will be back apparently in the film. That's less surprising, I think, but still fun and exciting. Very much looking forward to this movie, and I'm sure news is going to be trickling out about the Mandalorian and Grogu as time goes by, as we build up to May of 2026, which is when that's scheduled to come out.
Oh, that's so far
Something,
away.
yeah, it's a long time from now, but something that's much closer is Star Wars Andor season 2 and Star Wars Celebration 2025. Are you will I see you in Japan for Celebration?
I really wish I could.
Yeah.
Couldn't afford to get the whole family to Japan, and if we're going to go to Japan, like the family needs to go and experience it, and just a little too rich for my blood. I wish I could go. Yeah,
I don't know if I could afford it if I wasn't going for work, so I thank my situation that I'm able to do that. I feel very fortunate that I'm able to head out there in
my
April, but
father-in-law will be
yeah.
there. Yeah,
Oh,
so
great.
if you, I don't know if you met him, but you would recognize him. So
Sweet. Yeah. Hope I did submit to have Who's the Bossk as part of the podcast stage there. So if they approve me, I'll let you know, and hopefully you'll send them my way
all
and
right.
have them be in the audience out
Yeah.
there. The news that we got this week about Celebration is that Diego Luna, the star of Andor and Rogue One, is going to be a celebrity guest at Celebration. So he'll likely appear on stage. I'm sure they'll do some kind of presentation about Andor. And then usually the celebrities at Star Wars Celebration will appear for photo opportunities for guests and sign autographs, stuff like that. So if you're attending Star Wars Celebration, you can look forward to seeing Diego Luna there. Let's get into some United States Star Wars news, some more local stuff, because Season of the Force, this is a seasonal event at Disneyland. It's coming back for the third or fourth time total. This will be March 28th through May 11th this coming year, 2025. The big thing that they're boasting as part of this uh, return of Season of the Force is new projection effects for the Fire of the Rising Moons fireworks show in Galaxy's Edge. So basically, when the Disneyland fireworks happen by the Sleeping Beauty Castle, if you watch them from Galaxy's Edge, they play John Williams music along with the fireworks, and it's synced up in a nice, fun way. And now there will be new projection effects on the spires, Black Spire Outpost. Now you're a big Galactic Star Cruiser fan, but how much time have you spent in Galaxy's Edge outside of the Halcyon?
Not a ton, but I have spent some time. Although I have not been to Batu West. I've been to
Okay.
only Batu East. So I haven't seen Bard and I haven't seen Season of the Force.
Well, if you do get a chance, that would be a good time to visit then.
Yeah.
Between the
Actually, I
end
think
of
we're trying to
March. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I think we're trying to plan a trip sometime this coming year. So, and it would be to the West Coast. So, yeah.
There you go. End of March through mid-May is Season of the Force at Disneyland again this coming year. Let's see. In the world of Lego Star Wars, the recent Rebuild the Galaxy miniseries is now available to watch for free on Star Wars Kids YouTube. This was previously just a Disney Plus exclusive. I really enjoyed it. I had the creators and showrunners on this podcast talking about it, and I thought it was a lot of fun. I'm glad that more people are going to be able to get to see this. Did you get a chance to watch this, Patrick?
I started it, and I think my kids pulled me away, and I need to
Okay.
go back and finish it. I've probably seen it, but not
Yeah.
in order, sort of thing. But yeah, it's really fun. I do love it, and I even watched the Christmas special the other day, the Lego Christmas special, and that
Oh yeah.
also is just fantastic.
Yeah, and I think that right now for a limited time is also on YouTube. I'm not sure why they do this. I guess maybe they didn't get the viewership that they were hoping for on Disney Plus, and they just want to have more people see it, which is great. And then, it maybe brings in a little bit more revenue to have it on YouTube as well for them. But yeah, it's cool that you can now watch it for free. Go to the Star Wars Kids YouTube channel to check that out. In the world of comic books, the comic that came out this week was Star Wars: The Battle of Jakku. There it is. Republic Under Siege #4. So this is the conclusion to the second of 3 miniseries in the maxi series that is the Battle of Jakku. I will say I was really into the beginning of both of these miniseries, and then they kind of petered out for me by the end. I was like, it kind of felt like an anticlimax a little bit at the end of Insurgency Rising, I think. Is that the title of the first one? Yeah. And
I
then
think so. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and then Republic Under Siege kind of felt the same way to me, where I was just like a little underwhelmed by the end. But what I do like is they are bringing in all these different characters and kind of um, building up to the Battle of Jakku itself in an interesting way. And that's the next chapter in this whole thing. It's called Last Stand, I believe, and that's going to be they're finally getting to the titular Battle of Jakku. So I'm looking forward to that. So it seems like you bought this as well, Patrick. What were your thoughts on what
Well,
we've
so
read so far?
I'm not gonna lie, I cheated. I knew that you were gonna mention something,
Yeah.
whichever issue came out. So I bought this for in the middle, and it
Okay.
seemed like you were saying is that it was just sort of like leading up to, like sort of
Yes.
teasing the whole time, and that's great. But I also want to see it.
Yeah. So hopefully, this last 4 issues that are coming within the next month or so are going to be like kind of the big climactic finale for this. And I hope it pays off in a way that I will find satisfactory. We'll find out coming soon to Marvel Star Wars comic books. Let's see. In the world of toys, Hasbro has been doing these reveals every week for the Gift the Galaxy is Lucasfilm's holiday season reveals, announcements of all these Star Wars merchandise. And this week's Hasbro reveal, they actually have 2 new multi-packs coming from the Legends timeline of Star Wars novels. First of all, there's a Shadows of the Empire 2-pack for the Black Series, 6-inch scale of action figure, and that's going to be Princess Leia in the Bausch disguise, which has been released before for the Black Series, but it comes with Luke Skywalker in the Imperial Guard disguise from Shadows of the Empire, the novel that came out in like 1996, I think. That action figure was made back then in the 3 3/4-inch scale. So now they're doing it in the larger scale Black Series. That's fun. And then Heir to the Empire, everybody's favorite. Well, not everybody's, but it's kind of the one that kicked off the EU back in the early 90s. Really, Heir to the Empire by Timothy Zahn is getting a 3-pack, and that has Grand Admiral Thrawn. It has General Palaeon, and then one other that I'm blanking on. Do you remember?
Would it happen to be Sloane? Is Sloane in these?
No, Sloane was created for the new canon. I can't remember
Okay.
who the third character is in that 3-pack, but we have all the information on laughingplace.com. You can go and check that out, and you can pre-order these figure multi-packs from HasbroPulse.com. They all look really, really cool. And the Heir to the Empire one is the vintage collection, by the way, the smaller scale, 3 3/4-inch scale. Are you an action figure collector, Patrick?
No and yes. My father-in-law David does collect, and he collects it all.
Okay.
Like all of it. So
Gotcha.
I see it, we have it, but I wouldn't say that it's mine.
Gotcha. Understood. This next piece of news turned out to be a much bigger deal than I thought it was going to be, because I got this email the other day that was like, oh, this nail polish company is launching a new Star Wars collaboration. And I was like, okay, we'll write about that on Laughing Place. And it turned out to be like the second most viewed article in the last couple days at Laughing Place. So people are really into this. I had no idea. Did you know about this?
I heard this from a coworker, because
Okay.
I'm the Star Wars guy at
Yeah.
work, and I was just talking to a coworker, and she said, "Oh, hey, one of the nail polishes that I love is doing a Star Wars line." And I didn't know what it was, and then this showed up when I
Yeah.
looked it
So
up.
I had never heard of this. I mean, you and I don't know. I don't want to speak for you, but I don't wear nail polish. It's called Mooncat is the name of the company. So it must be a big deal in the world of nail polish. But they have a new Star Wars line. It's available beginning tomorrow as of this recording. So Friday, December 13th, you can order. There's all these different colors that you can buy individually, or you can get the big box set that comes with all the colors and I think a nail file and stickers and stuff. So it's all very cool. It's all got Darth Vader on the labels and stuff. So yeah, check that out. We've got all the info at Laughing Place. If you're
I
looking
will.
for a
I'm gonna look it up, because that's one of the
yeah,
things that, like, you can get people where they don't necessarily
exactly.
love Star Wars, but
Yeah.
it's something they like. Yeah.
And it's a great gift for the holiday season too. I'm guessing. Um, let's dip into Indiana Jones here for a second. There's a new video game that's getting a lot of praise, and I've been looking forward to this for a long time. It's called Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. I have not had a chance to play it yet, mostly because it's only available right now on Xbox Series X and PC. And my PC doesn't really handle games that well. And I have a PlayStation 5 for the console right now, for the current generation. Fortunately, it is coming out on PlayStation 5 in the spring. So I just have to wait a few months and I'll be able to play this. And I will definitely talk about it on the podcast, because we have covered a bunch of Indiana Jones stuff in the past. Obviously, it is Lucasfilm Games is overseeing the output of all this stuff. So very much looking forward to that. I heard great things. I know friends who have played it and really liked it. Patrick, is this something that would interest you? Are you a gamer? And are you an
I
Indiana Jones fan?
So I'm an Indiana Jones fan for
Yeah.
sure. Actually, just recently we started introducing our kids to Indiana Jones, because they're starting to get to the age where
Yeah.
they can get through it. I am not so much of a gamer. I don't
Okay.
like sitting in place for too long, but things
Okay.
like this I would love. So
Okay.
I don't have a console that would run it at the moment, but I will play this eventually for
Okay.
sure.
Same here. Yeah. Eventually we will get to it. So stay tuned for that within the next year or so. At some point we'll play and talk about Indiana Jones and the Great Circle on this podcast. Let's see. It's time to get into our main topic for this week's episode of Who's the Boss. Right at the 30-minute mark. Really nailed that. That's about where I like to do it. So that worked out timing wise. Star Wars Skeleton Crew, episode 3. It's entitled Interesting as an Astrogration Problem. Now, part of me thinks this is a typo on the Disney Plus website. If you go and click on this episode, it says Astrogration, Gration. On Wikipedia, they've spelled it astrogation without the R in there. I don't know which one is correct, but then I saw on the official Star Wars Twitter, I think it was This Week in Star Wars, they had a bit about the episode, and they also spelled it astrogration with the R. So that leads me to believe that that is correct. I haven't gone and looked at the subtitles in the episode because that is a line of dialogue that the character Kim says.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you have a thought on this?
Well, I actually didn't notice the R until you just
Yeah.
pointed it out. But
Yeah.
I took notes, and I wrote the R as well.
Yeah.
But I had
Yeah.
heard that the difference between navigation and astrogation was that one was water, one was space. So it makes sense, but the extra R makes it a little different. So I get it.
I'm confused by it, but I don't know. When will we officially know? I guess when the 4K disc comes out some years from now, and we'll see how they spell it on there. I don't know. Anyway, Patrick, let's go back to before Skeleton Crew started. When you first heard about this show, what were your hopes and expectations going into Skeleton Crew before you saw any of the trailers? I guess including the trailers, like before you saw the episodes themselves.
So I try not to watch trailers after
Okay.
the announcement trailer because I try not to know too much going into it. I like to let it come over me and see it as it's coming instead of making these assumptions about what I'm going to see. I think trailers give a little too much away. But I was very excited by what I heard. I love the idea of making Star Wars fun for both young and old fans. I really, really hoped that this show would remind older fans that Star Wars is fun and for kids, and it doesn't have to be whatever you think it is. It can be a lot more. So I was very excited for it. And I thought that the first 2 episodes were good. I loved Neil. Oh my God, I love Neil. He's all of us, right? Like if you actually went on this experience, like this journey, you would be Neil. Just I want to go home.
I think my favorite thing about Neil is how honest he is. Like anytime anyone asks him a question, he always just blurts out the honest answer. He doesn't try to deceive anyone. He's honest to a fault.
And I'm kind of like that too. So I guess that's why I like Neil so much.
Yeah, can't argue with that. Let's see. This episode was directed by David Lowery, who also directed the second episode. He is a filmmaker who's made a bunch of stuff, including A Ghost Story. He also did Pete's Dragon, the remake for Disney some years ago, and the Peter Pan and Wendy movie for Disney Plus. It was once again written by the co-creators Christopher Ford and John Watts, who did Spider-Man Homecoming together. The cinematographer was David Klein, who has worked on The Mandalorian. I think he's done like 6 episodes, shot episodes of that series. And the editor was Terrell Gibson, again from the movie Sorry to Bother You. Let's talk about episode 3. Patrick, what were your first thoughts coming out of this third installment?
Coming out of it, I was very, very excited for a few reasons that we'll get into. The biggest highlights were well, obviously Crimson Jack being a name drop,
Yeah.
like that just instantly piqued my interest. Actually, when he was, the first thing that hit me was when he was spinning around the post with the ship. The noise sounded almost identical to episode 2, the speeder chase on
Okay.
Coruscant. That
Okay.
like high pitched that
Okay.
you hear, like it was almost identical. Like I rewound it and listened again. Yeah.
I
Neil's
love that.
snoring.
Just to interrupt you there, I love that people are picking up so many little tidbits and Easter eggs like that. Stuff that, I'm a lifelong Star Wars fan too, and I had a long list of things that I noticed, but you just mentioned that and I hadn't heard anybody say that before. I'm sure it's accurate. I just haven't Attack of the Clones is not the movie that I've seen the most of all the Star
Mhm.
Wars. It probably didn't jump out to me. And then, people saw the Star Tours Star Speeder. I'm sure you saw this
I saw that
somewhere.
it. I didn't see it
Yeah,
myself, but then
right.
I saw that someone had shared it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm paying pretty close attention to these Easter eggs because I do a post on it on Laughing Place about it. And I missed those two things. So there's lots of stuff in there. Sorry to interrupt you. Continue, please.
No, no. I was gonna say Neil was snoring. We got that,
Yeah.
but we
And
only
he
got like
makes a little
one. We only got
elephant
one.
noise. Yeah.
Um, we met Kim, who was like an owl cat lady, which is a new
Yeah.
species, which is just really cool.
Uh,
And then something that came up that just blew my mind was Jewels of the Old Republic.
hmm.
As far as I know, the only other reference to the High Republic in quotes canon is when Paz Vizsla is discussing how the Darksaber was taken from the Jedi archives when it was sacked, decades ago or generations ago. As far as I know, that was the only even reference to the Old Republic in canon, and now they're referencing capital Old Republic, and it's so cool.
Well, I mean, Obi-Wan Kenobi does say the Old Republic in the original Star Wars film. That was like the very, the first time we ever heard that phrase is when he's talking to
Okay,
Luke
fair enough.
in his hut. But yeah, no, I know what you mean. We've got the High Republic, and then going way back even further than that is the Old Republic. So yeah, it would be great to hear more about the Old Republic in
Yeah,
canon. And those are the credits that Wim is carrying around with him as
right.
well. He's got Old Republic credits. So
It's like walking
yes,
around with Spanish doubloons,
yes,
basically.
that are in mint condition, as they say.
Right. Well, and one
Um,
thing that really
yeah,
piqued my interest was at the very beginning, excuse me, very beginning of the episode when we were with the parents,
yeah,
and they said that once the ship left the barrier, they could not risk communication. That's just
right.
give me more, give me more.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
So that
Yeah,
mystery is slowly unfolding for us. Like, what is the deal with
yeah,
this planet at Aten? Why are they separated away from the rest of the galaxy? Why can't ships come and go? Why can't they contact the outside world? And this episode, we learned that they don't even know that I mean, there's really been two wars recently in the galaxy. There was the Clone War, and then there was the
the
Galactic
Galactic
Civil War.
Rebellion. Yeah,
Right. So they don't know about either of those, and they don't know that Alderaan got blown up, right?
yeah,
As we
yeah.
learned in this episode. So they've really been sequestered away. Although they do learn, we found out here also that they've learned about Alderaan's existence and Coruscant's existence. They're just not up to date on current events. Obviously, they learn about the Jedi's existence as well. So they know the Jedi Order exists, but they don't know that it's been wiped out. Yeah,
Right, but Han Solo thought that it was a fairy tale when we meet him,
right.
which is before this time. So
Yeah,
yeah, these kids are coming out of an age where they didn't even
yeah,
know that the Jedi were gone.
exactly.
They still think they're
Uh,
around, so they think that Jod is probably more commonly a Jedi than is correct.
right,
Which
right.
is another thing that they
Yeah,
answered the questions for us, right? At the end of last episode, it was like, well, why didn't you just get the key if you could have done that the whole time? They
yeah.
answered it. They told us why, which was great. Do you think that he's a Jedi?
I'm I've been watching do you watch Star Wars Explained on YouTube at all?
Sometimes, yes.
Okay, Alex Damon is a friend of mine. I'm gonna name drop Alex here. Acquaintance of mine. I was texting with him the other day, and I kind of agree with his assessment of Jod, and I think that he probably does have the Force, but as he admits at the end of this episode, he's not a Jedi. He's just kind of
I I would
a
agree.
nobody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's my
Because
thoughts as
we've
well.
seen, even in this episode, we see him use the Force a few more times. Like, he distracts those guards the way that Obi-Wan Kenobi does in the original film. He uses it to turn off the lights on the ship when KB is going to sleep, when he's talking to KB. So it seems to me that he does have access to the Force. Does that make sense? Well, we'll talk about that in a little bit when we talk about Crimson Jack. But the other question I have about Jod, since you brought him up, it's a good segue again. My wife pointed out as we were watching the episode, because I've seen this one like 5 times by now. She watched it for the first time, I think last night or the night before, and she pointed out that it seemed like Jod knew the ship, the Onyx Cinder. I said that I thought it had been buried for, I don't know, however many hundreds of years on the planet. So it seemed unlikely that he would have been aboard the ship before. But he does seem to know like where everything is, how to operate it, where the little gun turrets are and how they come down and how those work. I don't know. Did you interpret that as he knew this specific ship before? Or do you think he maybe just knows in general how ships work and where things are located on this type of pirate ship?
A little bit of both. I think it might be a
Okay.
mix of both. In that this may be something that he has been looking for before, and that might have been a ship that he at one point sent out and just got lost, or he knew of that went out and got lost. So
Hmm.
he at least recognizes the style, maybe. And for some reason, everyone who's a pilot knows how to pilot anything in Star
Right.
Wars. So like that part, I was like, well, yeah, no, I mean, it just kind of he's flipping switches. And
Yeah.
I watched it a few times too. That first time he sees it, I looked closer. There's a lot of dust and dirt and
Right.
grime around it, so it really does look kind of like old. So
Yeah.
I think I don't know. As the I guess the short answer is I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think we have enough information really yet. But yeah, that was kind of my read on his first reaction to it as well, was that he just kind of thought it was gross. It's kind of like, it reminded me of like when Luke Skywalker first sees the Millennium Falcon and he's like, that what a piece of junk,
And then the
like,
second time we see the Millennium Falcon, right?
yeah,
Well, I
exactly.
guess the not the second time, but the yeah, you know what I mean. Force
When
Awakens.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Let's talk about Kim, this new character that you mentioned earlier. This is yeah. Do we know the name of her species? Has anyone said this yet?
I have not seen it yet.
Me neither. Yeah. So we don't know her species name, but her name is pronounced Kim, like Kim, and spelled in a very Star Wars fashion. It's spelled KH apostrophe YMM. I just love that. And she is voiced by the actress Alia Shawkat, who you know from Arrested Development, who I know from Arrested Development. She plays Maybe Funke on that show. She's been in a ton of stuff. Was that Search Team show that she had for a while? But great, funny actress, and she does a great performance. She had so many little interesting quirks that she brings to this character. The way she laughs, just
She has a really
little
cool bond
mannerisms.
with KB
Yeah,
as well, which is interesting. They
yeah,
see things very literally, and they have this instant bond, which is cool.
yeah. This character also kind of reminded me of. Are you familiar with the Dark Crystal, Jim Henson movie
I
from the early
know
'80s?
it. I know it. Yeah.
Okay. There's a character named Ogra in that movie, and that character also has like an observatory that she lives in, that is huge and rotates around, and the characteristics kind of are similar enough, and there's so many '80s movies referenced in Skeleton Crew that I wouldn't be surprised if they drew inspiration from that character in the Dark Crystal. But I don't know, was there anything else that stuck out to you about Kim? Well, I don't know. Why don't we talk about the way she's created? Because I know it's a kind of a mixture of puppetry and CGI. It looks
Oh,
pretty
is
cool
it?
to me.
I thought it
Yeah,
was for some reason I thought it was full CGI because I just imagine a owl cat lady flying around to
right.
be hard to practically do. Um,
Certainly the shots where she's flying are CGI, but I know a lot of the I saw some of the ILM people talking about this on social
that's
media,
cool.
like how it was created. But yeah, I think it looks great. It's pretty seamless
That's
to me. I
really
don't know
cool.
what do you think of Kim in
Well,
general?
I loved it. One little note that I got from it was Archimedes from The Sword and the Stone because it's
Yes,
an
that too.
owl flying around a very crowded space.
Yes,
Um, but that's not 80s, but it's kind of very
sure.
similar. Um, I really liked it. I don't know what to think of her. And she, as we're about to talk about, also drops the name for the first time, which
Yeah.
now that we've gotten the Instagram post, well, I saw it on Instagram post from Star Wars, now makes me question more about Kim. Like, why did you even use the name?
What was
Did
the
you?
Instagram post? I missed it.
The Instagram post, I'm gonna say it as best I can, is it was a picture of Crimson Jack from the Halcyon comics and a picture of Jude Law, and it said, obviously these two people are not the same people. It just goes to show that Jod may not be who he says he is.
Oh,
And it
okay.
was
I missed this entirely.
an official Star Wars like post. So I was like, oh, okay. Well, I guess you threw a little bit of a wet blanket on my Star Cruiser hopes,
Okay.
but
That's very interesting new information to me that I had
what?
not seen.
Well, and it makes me wonder more about Kim as like, why are you even using this name if,
Right.
well, what's up? What's up? So
Yeah, so in this episode we learned not only does Jod have multiple aliases. So we learned that he is the one and the same as Captain Silvo from
yeah,
the beginning of the first episode, but also he goes by Jod Nanawud and Crimson Jack. Like Kim knows him as Crimson Jack. So now you're saying officially Star Wars is saying it's not the same Crimson Jack as the one in Halcyon Legacy.
correct.
But
As we talk, I'll look it up so I can quote it exactly.
okay, so let's go into it now. I think this is a good time to dive into the history of this character, Crimson Jack. I was thinking about it, and because Crimson Jack first appeared in issue number 7 of the original Marvel Star Wars comic book, which was the first issue that was not an adaptation of the movie. So the first 6 issues just adapted the original Star Wars film, 1 through 6. And then 7 was the first original story, really the very, very, very first original story in the expanded universe. And Crimson Jack is one of the first characters introduced there. So he's really one of the first characters created for Star Wars outside of the movies.
By Marvel
Going,
Comics, right?
yeah, going all the way back to 1977 is when this comic came out later in the year after they finished the movie adaptation. He was in issues, so he popped up as a recurring character. I actually just reread these, kind of doing a little bit of research, but he was in issues 7 through 15 is when he dies. He dies in 15 in the original comic, shot by Han Solo in outer they're just like floating in space with gas masks on. They have this battle and he's shot and killed. Spoiler alert for a nearly 50-year-old comic book there, but he did come back in the current canon in the Halcyon Legacy. Why don't you talk about this Crimson Jack's role in the Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser Halcyon Legacy comic book?
So I haven't gone back and reread those, but from what I
Yeah,
remember, it's 5 issues, and each there's like an A storyline that arcs across all 5 issues, which involves Crimson Jack,
yeah,
sort of attacking the ship, and he is trying to get a rebel spy off of the ship and get a bounty or something like that. And he actually steps on board and he gets repelled by the crew we meet on board the Galactic Star Cruiser. I actually told Lanka Mock that I had seen, that she had a right cross that, could knock people out.
nice.
And Lanka looks at, anyway. Um, so that's how I know the name Crimson Jack is
Yeah,
that he then rats out the Star Cruiser as a haven for I guess it's not resistance spies at the moment.
Right.
And he tells that to Lieutenant Croy. Lieutenant Croy then ends up being a character we meet on the Galactic Star Cruiser. And I found the Star Wars and Marvel Comics post, and it's a picture of the version from the Halcyon Legacy of Crimson Jack, and then a picture of Jude Law, and it says, Jod's alias of Crimson Jack is an old pirate that first appeared in the original Marvel run of Star Wars comics, starting with issue number 7, published in October 1977. A more modern version of Crimson Jack has appeared in recent comics, who bears no resemblance to Jod, indicating Jod has a habit of not being who he says he is.
Okay. So that pretty much, I would say that pretty much confirms that they're not the same character.
I had an idea that it might be a Dread Pirate Roberts.
Yeah,
sort of
that's
thing.
what you brought up Nick Tierce earlier, and that's what Nick kind of said to me, that it might turn out to be this name that kind of got passed down through the ages among the pirates in the galaxy. And yeah, obviously they don't look terribly similar. Crimson Jack in the comics is a little bit beefier, and he's got way more facial hair. Yeah, I don't know what that's called, like the Martin
like a handlebar
Van
mustache or
yeah,
something.
exactly. And he dresses differently. And I don't know if the age would have worked, because figure like Jude Law is around 50 years old, I think. And the Halcyon Legacy comics take place like another almost 30
like
years
25
after,
years ago.
yeah, after Skeleton Crew. So I don't know if the age really adds up. So it is interesting that they have pointed out that likely
name,
likely
so.
Jod is using this as another alias, I guess. I know Nick will be disappointed in that, because he wanted it to be the same person.
I wanted it to be the same person too, because then that's just one step closer to making the Halcyon like true a part of the but
yeah, sorry. But I know that the Lucasfilm story group are doing their best to keep everything in order, and that's probably part of like the damage control, because my guess is, Ethan Sachs, who wrote that comic book, the Halcyon Legacy comic, probably was a fan, grew up as a fan of the original Star Wars comic, and he wanted to bring in this old character, and the story group let him. And then I'm guessing the same thing happened with John Watts and Christopher Ford. So now they have to justify, like, well, these two things can't exist at the same time. So yep, interesting to hear that. Thank you for pointing that out to me. Story wise, let's see what happens in this episode. They break out of the brig in Port Borgo. Then there's a whole thing where Jod has to go back to get SM-33, the droid. That was one of the highlights for me, him going through the droid workshop and activating all the different droids.
The battle droid, did we win? And then falling apart.
That was really funny. And then the other droid going like, oh, the prince is in danger. I have to save the prince. Like he's got this just other like tangential adventure going on that we don't get to see. Very, very funny stuff. And then we meet that character voiced by Alfred Molina. His name is Benjar Pranik, and he's a Ishi-Tib of the Ishi-Tib species. And I just thought it was fun to see. I didn't know who it was voicing him. I looked at the credits at the end, and Alfred Molina obviously has the Lucasfilm connection to Raiders of the Lost Ark. He plays Satipo or Sabito or whatever in the beginning of Raiders. So that's a really fun, return to Lucasfilm for a very famous actor.
I kind of want to know what happened to Benjar. Like, how did the captain or whoever Jod is, how did Jod get out of there?
Well, they don't tell us. It's kind of like a smash cut, because he's like, I'm gonna have to tell Captain Brutus, and then they cut back to the ship, to the Onyx Cinder, where the kids are debating whether or not Jod is really a Jedi.
And then comes Jod.
Yep. We don't see his escape. We just see the end result of it all. And then you mentioned earlier the jumping to hyperspace, the whole thing, jumping to hyperspace while he's still attached to the fuel line, and that causes a lot of damage to the
Yeah.
Fort Borgo
Yeah.
space
The note I
station.
wrote down was ferry fight.
Yes. I love it. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And then the second half of the episode is on the moon where Kim lives. She's kind of sequestered off there by herself as well. And she's almost like a historian of the galaxy. She's got all these books and data pads and maps and scrolls. There's that scroll that I took one look at it when she unfurls it on the table there, and it's all the Arabic language, and I was like, well, somebody's got to decipher all of this, and it's going to take some time. I'm sure somebody out there has done it by now, but I haven't looked into it yet.
I meant to try to go and do it before the show,
Yeah.
and I haven't gotten
Okay.
to it yet. Yeah.
Yeah, but they're giving us all these clues to kind of interpret, get put all the pieces together about what the history of like you said, the jewels of the Old Republic and
I
how
can't
Ad
wait to
Atkin fits
learn.
in. Yeah,
Yeah.
me too.
Oh, and speaking of the moon, I wanted to
Yeah.
say that the cinematography, some of the shots of the
Yes.
kids and Jod walking were
Yeah.
just gorgeous shots with
Yeah.
that planet in the background.
I actually used that image as the thumbnail for this live stream
Nice.
discussion. So I felt the
Nice.
same way. Really, really cool looking shots there. I'm sure they shot that on the volume. And they've really learned how to make that look very neat and appealing. The other thing I wanted to mention is when Jod kept saying, "Oh, I have this friend who might be able to help us," I thought for sure by the time they got to that moon, I thought for sure it was going to be Pirate Queen Maz Kanata.
That's who I thought it would be as well.
Did you? Okay,
Yeah.
so you had the same thought as me, because it's established that she has association with the underworld of the Star Wars galaxy. She's involved with the pirate side of things, so I kind of anticipated her showing up at some point in Skeleton Crew, but I don't know, maybe they couldn't get what's the actress's name who plays her from
that's Lupita Nyong'o, isn't it?
Yeah, Lupita Nyong'o. Yes, thank you. Maybe they couldn't get her because it feels like Kim is a sort of similar archetype to that character.
Yes.
So she might be like a replacement to
an
Maz
equal.
Yeah. Yes. Right. But Maz has showed up a bunch in the publishing side of Star Wars. She's been in the High Republic books, and so she's many centuries old, and she exists through all this these different timelines. And Jod talks about how he doesn't really trust her, and she might stab them in the back, and she in fact does. And I think the kids, the Skeleton Crew kids, have this moment where, well, which one of these people is telling us the truth, right? I don't know. How did you feel about that? This whole, should we trust Jod? Should we trust Kim?
I don't know who to trust. I genuinely do believe Jod wants to get them back home for selfish reasons. And this woman, or this creature, I should say, this being, we don't know what her intentions are, what their intentions are. So I really don't know. And then, like, what the kids being in the turrets kind of threw me off a little bit, right? Like, wait, what? These children are going to do what? and Wim is like all of us. He's like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
And of course, the X-Wing pilot who is new to us in Star Wars, you let him get away. I wasn't going to shoot the kids down, right?
Right.
So I really don't know what to think. It's interesting. I don't fully trust Kim, and I absolutely don't trust Jod now.
Right. And he even kind of admits that he's been misleading the kids at the end here. So we know that he hasn't entirely been telling the truth. We know he's got multiple aliases. Kim is warning the kids not to hang out with them. But ultimately, they do all kind of escape together, jump back into hyperspace. They steal, or they swipe. Jod swipes the coordinates that they were able to come up with. I doubt that they're going to head right back to At-Atin. To me, that would be very quick to return to At-Atin immediately in the next episode. I don't know. We'll see where we go from here.
This is
But
a 8 episode series, right?
yes, so we're only 3 in. There's 5
Yeah.
left after this. Was there anything that you didn't care for in this episode?
There was no, not really.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that there was anything that I blew me away that was like the most amazing thing ever, but
Right.
I thought it was fantastic, like an 8.5 out of 10, right? It's a
Okay.
great episode of TV. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still really into this show as well. And even the character of Kim, who is I would say probably like the closest, like feels a little bit, how do I say this delicately? Kim is the most like cartoonish character we've met so far on
Okay.
Skeleton Crew, I would say, in the way that she is very animated. She flies around. She's a little owl mouse character, like you said, owl cat or whatever. But the way they, I think it worked, and it fits into the world that's been established already, and it feels like a character that would exist in Star Wars and a species that would exist. You know, many of the
Yep.
species in Star Wars are inspired by real life animals and creatures. So to have an
Mhm.
owl cat with whiskers, it fits right in. I'm loving it. I want a Kim
Yeah.
action figure. I hope they get around to her. I know they announced SM33 recently, so
I want a
um,
Kim Stuffy.
yeah, they got to do a plush doll of her too. That would be really
Yeah.
cool. And I want to know the name of the species also. So
Mhm.
Lucasfilm, that would be good information to have. Let's see. You did mention we did talk about 5 episodes remain in Skeleton Crew. What else are you hoping to see in this series, Patrick?
One
What are
can
you hoping for, expecting from Skeleton
one can only hope that
Crew?
Hondo shows up, right? Like
Oh yeah.
anyone who comes on here should be hoping that Hondo shows up. He's a
Yeah.
pirate that has been around for generations and he still
Yeah.
exists later on in the timeline. He needs to be here. But I also expected Maz to show up. So we'll
Right.
see. I'm just excited for the ride. I'm starting to put the pieces together. I'm very excited to learn about what the great work is. I don't know
Right.
yet. Yeah.
Yeah,
The
those are
at
really
Atten, yeah, at Atten is obviously the puzzle that we're trying to figure
yes.
out, like what it is. And so I'm just like you said, I think it's a little too early for them to go back to at Atten, because once you get there, now it's just going to be, let's figure out what it is here. I still like kind of like the adventure.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Yeah, yeah, like you said, the 2 names that I thought of when I hear pirates and Star Wars, at least in the current canon, are Maz Kanata and Hondo Onaka. So Hondo would be great to get. We did get a
Hmm.
reference to Crimson Jack at least. So
Hmm.
they do seem to be hitting all those beats. And like I said last week, I kind of accidentally spoiled a little bit of this episode last week because I they were all blending together because I had seen the first 3 from the screeners. But yeah, Captain Brutus puts out a bounty. He wants a bounty taken out on Jod and the kids. So I want to see some Star Wars bounty hunters in the show. That's
Hmm.
still
Boss could
my
show up. They could all
desire.
show
Yeah,
up. Yeah.
that would be awesome, and they're in the right time period for that. Anything else you would like to say about Skeleton Crew before we move along here, Patrick?
I am very glad that so many people are excited about it. I love
Yeah,
the feeling of having the united fan community. It's fun. People are
yeah,
like arguing about Star Wars is not very much fun. Let's all be fans.
that's true. The reaction has been less volatile about Skeleton Crew
Hmm.
than it was about the Acolyte, so we can appreciate that. Let's wrap up our discussion of Skeleton Crew for this week, and we'll get into our final segment here on Who's the Bossk. It's called First Steps into a Larger World. This is where we talk about the media we've been consuming and or enjoying outside of Star Wars. My example this week is I finally started watching The Boys, which is a basic cable TV show we've been watching on Hulu. I'm actually does it air on FX
No,
originally?
the boys is Amazon Prime.
Oh, it's Amazon Prime. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
I had it wrong. Not Hulu. It's on Amazon Prime. It's an Amazon original. That's
yeah.
right. I got it mixed up in my head because we were also watching What We Do in the Shadows, which is on Hulu and is airing on FX.
Well, that
I
first
mixed.
15 minutes of the boys really sets the tone, doesn't
Yes, there you go. This is another one of those shows, The Boys, that's been recommended to me over and over and over, and I never found time to watch it. Now I've seen the first 3 episodes. I'm into it. we're going to keep going. I know there's 4 seasons to get through, but
It's
I'm digging it.
when I watch it, I need a palate cleanser. Like I'll watch an
Okay.
episode and then I have to
Yeah.
go watch something fun because I mean it's a great show. It's fantastic. It's
Yeah.
hard to watch sometimes.
For those who don't know, it takes place in a world where there are many superheroes that exist, and the superheroes, at least the most famous ones, are like corporately sponsored, and they're all kind of jerks. But the general public doesn't necessarily know that they're jerks. And there's this team of non-powered individuals who want to take them down for various reasons, and they are the central characters of the show. Very fun, very interesting. Looking forward to more. How about you, Patrick? What have you been watching, reading, playing, anything
Well,
lately?
I just finished rereading for the first time since a child, Lord of the Rings: The Fellowship of the Ring. I did the
Ooh,
audiobook, so it was the first time that I've gone back to it since the movies, really. So
yeah,
that was fun. I watched The Penguin, which I loved.
yeah.
Um, I am currently catching up on The Legend of Vox Machina season 3, which is an animated show on Amazon Prime, which is basically D&D animated, right? It's a D&D
Okay,
storyline animated.
yeah.
Um, and currently I'm watching Dune Prophecy. Are you
Okay, I
watching
have
it?
not checked it out. So it's on our list. It's another one of those that's been added to the list, but I haven't had a moment to, like, we're still behind on House of the Dragon. So we are gonna finish that first, and then maybe we'll pick up Dune Prophecy.
Did you watch The Penguin?
Yes, finished that and loved it. Yeah.
So it's not the same in any way. I'm just making sure.
Yeah.
But Dune Prophecy is a lot slower.
Okay.
It's a lot more what happened behind the scenes, thinking about all of the questions that you had when you were reading these original books or watching those original movies. They're trying to explain what happened and how that's coming about. There's not very much action, but it's making you think a lot. But
Okay.
that's not necessarily for everyone. So
I'm a casual Dune fan. I've seen the movies. I haven't read the books. So hopefully when I check it out, hopefully I will enjoy it. Again, it's on our list.
it's using all the names that you know. It's using
Yeah.
Atreides. It's using Harkonnens. It's using even
Yeah.
the Emperor's name is the same. So you should be able to log right in.
Cool. Great. Hopefully I will get a chance to check that out soon. That's going to bring us to the end of this week's episode of Who's the Bossk. Big thank you to my guest this week, Patrick Radecker. I want to make sure I'm saying your name correctly. Radecker is correct. Patrick Radecker,
Yeah.
thank you again for coming on the show.
Well, thanks for
We're
having me. I really
sure,
appreciate it.
absolutely love talking about Skeleton Crew and Star Wars in general with you. Where can people find you, Patrick, if you want them to find you on the internet?
The easiest place to find me is Instagram. I'm pradic1 on Instagram and Threads. My name on Facebook. I'm in a bunch of the Star Cruiser groups. And I currently help co-host a live show with Stan Solo on the Solo Show YouTube channel. Right now, it's a roundtable talking about Skeleton Crew.
Oh, awesome. What was your character's name on the Halcyon?
My name backwards.
Oh,
So
okay.
I was Kirtap Rexidar, and
Okay.
I told people, yeah, just call me Tap. That'll be easier.
Nice. Love it. That's a very Star Warsy thing to do. Just kind of reverse your name. On the next episode of Who's the Bossk, so it'll be episode 210, and every 10 episodes we do the Mike and David Movie Club. We've already recorded this episode. Actually, we're talking about I think it's 1941 film noir movie called The Dark Mirror. The reason I chose that movie was because it shares a premise with The Acolyte. Actually, it's about a woman who's accused of murder, and it turns out that the murderer was her twin sister. So I just thought it would be fun to check out this movie we hadn't seen before, and we talked about it, David and I. Check that out coming up early next week. Otherwise, please visit laughingplace.com as always for all your Disney news and opinions. I'm on Instagram at Who's the Bossk Pod. Thanks again, everybody out there, for listening and or watching live. Thank you, Patrick, once more. And we'll see you real soon. May the force be with you. Thanks again.
Good journey.
Bye.